it's the presence of a saint. So when they're gone, they're still there, and the energy's still there, and the blessing. Neem Karoli Baba Maharaji even said before once, if somebody understood me in my true nature, they would pluck the hairs off of me and take that with them, or something similar to that. Hi everyone, and welcome to my podcast. Today I wanted to make a video on what it was like traveling to India on sort of a spiritual pilgrimage, a spiritual journey, which I just came back from a couple weeks ago. I was just there for a week, but it was very beautiful and very fulfilling to my heart. And it had been a place I wanted to go for a long time because of my study and practice of Eastern spiritual traditions, my understanding of the great saints and gurus that come out of India, and the devotion that's embedded into the culture. And that had been something I have practiced and studied for many years now. So it had always been a desire of mine to one day go to India. But the way the circumstances came about were most surprising. I was actually set to be in Wisconsin, USA, at a meditation retreat the weekend I ended up going. And I am very connected with Ram Dass. In the Ram Dass tradition, his guru was Neem Karoli Baba, shortly known as Maharaji for short. And so I'm very involved in that community. And recently, I had been feeling more connected to Maharaji than ever. And I had been feeling just little bits of that presence and love. And I had a dream where he came to me. And then all of a sudden, about 2 weeks before the trip, I was presented with the opportunity to go to India, to Kainchi, which is the temple that Maharaji had built and where he lived, and the temples in the surrounding area that are also dedicated to him. So it was, and when it is, you get called out there. So I didn't feel that it was much of my choice. It was just a happening, and I knew it was meant to be, so I did it. And arriving in India and driving up the 9 hours to the temples in the foothills of the Himalayas, so northern India, was a fantastic journey. Seeing just the people everywhere, the culture, the craziness on the roads, the way of life, everything like that. But the time I spent up at the temples in Kainchi and the various surrounding areas, and you would kind of spend the days going to the various temples and meditating there and doing what's called pranam, is where you bow in front of the statues of the deities. And there would be different temples to the Hindu deities, such as Hanuman, the monkey god, or Shiva, or Krishna and Radha, or Ram and Sita. And at the Kainchi temple, there's all of those. And there's also a temple to Maharaji, and there's a temple to Siddhi Ma, who is Maharaji's devotee. So you go to these various temples, and the spirit is very alive there. It's all about, like, that path is the devotional path. So it's about getting into your heart and getting into love. And so, for example, one of the temples, this little Krishna Radha temple, they're very tiny when you actually enter them. So there's room on the side, and there's 3 guys, and then there's 3 more guys, and they rotate in shifts. And from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m., they chant the Hare Krishna mantra all day long, from March to October. And there's another spot on the side where about 3 more people could sit. So we would sit there and meditate while they chanted, and just hundreds of people come in between your space and their space, and do their bows and their prayers to Krishna and Radha. And it was a very powerful experience. So what I felt from being out there was a deeper connection with Maharaji than ever. And that was the reason that I went on the trip. It wasn't just a trip, say, to see the Taj Mahal or something. It was a spiritual journey, and it happened to be the week of June 15th, which is when at Kainchi Temple, they hold an event called the Bandara. And so tens of thousands of people come from all over the country. And the devotion is so real and understood in India the power of being blessed by a saint. It's understood how much spiritual blessing can be got through showing up at a holy site, through being in the presence of a holy being, through eating blessed food from a temple. It's very well understood how auspicious that is, to the extent that people would drive 12 hours overnight to stand in line for a couple hours and get prasad, which is holy food. It's just blessed food, and to bow at the temples, and then you have to go back home the same day because they couldn't afford to stay at a hotel. And so that's how alive the devotion is in the culture. Because could you imagine, I couldn't imagine in the United States somebody driving 12 hours overnight from, say, Indiana, where I live, to Missouri to show up at a church and get some blessed food and drive back home. But they understand the benefits of spiritual pilgrimage and the blessing that then ensues. So on the day of the Bandara, which is not recommended to go to Westerners during this time of the year because it's hot and because there's so many people during the day of the Bandara, but it was fantastic, and it was so lively, and the people were so excited to see me and my friend as Westerners practicing the tradition, and I was dressed in the traditional clothing. So got a lot of attention that I didn't expect, and lots of videos and interview and TV and paper, but it was very beautiful. And one of the most beautiful things I did notice in India is the people's genuine, every time you meet someone, whether it's at the hotel or in public, there's a prayer hands and a bow, often accompanied by namaste, which means I honor the true nature between us, or Ram Ram, which is a name for God, or Hare Krishna, which is a name for God. So it was beautiful to see that alive in the culture. I guess you could compare it to if everybody in the West, every time they parted, sort of did a little prayer hands and said, God bless you. Like that reverence in the culture. And I'm not saying it's everywhere or in everyone, but it's very alive there, and it's very powerful in the area that I went. And I got to spend 6 or 7 days out there, which was fantastic. Next time I go back, I plan to spend more, maybe closer to 2 weeks, so that I can go to some other places. But it's a whole nother world compared to what I have been used to seeing. And I sort of just flow with things, and I'm not too very overly attached to any models. So I was okay just being in this new world, in this world that was foreign to me. And you would go to these temples of great saints like Neem Karoli Baba or Sombari Maharaj or Swami Vivekananda in little kirtis, they call them, or kirtis, where they're like little man-made caves that would be kind of in the ground where they would sit and meditate. Or there'd be Sombari Maharaj, you go to the kirti and the little river where he spent 20 years of his life doing spiritual practice and would bathe 3 times a day in the freezing river in the winter. And you go to these places where Neem Karoli Baba Maharaj used to sit and meditate, or his tucket where he laid and where his blanket was and everything like that. And so the important thing to remember is this is not like, it's not like a cool historical thing to be like, oh, just like going to like Abraham Lincoln's home or something like that. It's the presence of a saint. So when they're gone, they're still there, and the energy's still there, and the blessing. Neem Karoli Baba Maharaji even said before once, if somebody understood me in my true nature, they would pluck the hairs off of me and take that with them, or something similar to that. Basically saying that the power of a saint, of a being that's totally merged in love, of a being that's merged in infinite consciousness, is so unfathomably powerful that just to be in a place where their energy was, where their energy is of great spiritual blessing. And you can, of course, contact them and connect with that love from anywhere. It's just sometimes easier when it is in a place where they were, where it is in a place of connection. So when you go to these places and you meditate at them, it's, as I said, it's not just like a cool historical thing. It's getting the darshan, which means like the blessing of the guru. One of the places we went was where Swami Vivekananda had spent some time, and it said there that he, while sitting in meditation in this little kirti, which I would love to meditate in next time I didn't, that he had the realization that an atom was the same as the entire universe, that there was no difference between all of the universe and a single atom. So what I would say I got was a desire to go back. Was a great sense of love and devotion. When I was on my way back from India on one of the flights back, I was listening to Kirtan, Indian devotional music by Krishnadas, and I felt then, after the trip, I felt the presence of Maharaji more than, even while I was there, and more than ever before, to the point where I was, I could see a little bit more of his true nature, that loving awareness as a part of the source, as a part of God, but also like maintaining a little bit of separateness in order to help us and to guide us. And I was crying, and I was crying the whole time for a couple hours on the way back. And it was like an opening in my heart of great love and great devotion. So our path, me and my friend that went out there, is mainly in everything I do in spiritual practice, from Kundalini yoga to magic to meditation to mantra to service in the world. It all falls within the bhakti, which means love, devotional path, the devotional path of Maharaji. And I realized that my primary spiritual practice is the grace of the guru, the grace of Maharaji, like melting into that love and connecting with him, with that being, and all my other practices fall within that. So the hard thing to convey about bhakti, about devotion, about loving awareness, is that it can only be understood by those who have opened to it, or it can start to be understood by anyone as you feel your way into your heart. But it's not such a thing that you can try to understand intellectually with your mind. When I talk about the heart opening and the crying and the devotion and the presence of Maharaji everywhere is love, when you talk about those things, if you try to intellectually understand it, well, it's not going to be of any benefit for you. It's not going to be of any, I mean, if you're trying to do it to get into your heart to lead you to love, yes. But if you're trying to just rationalize it or be like, oh, that's just getting emotional or something, you'll miss the path, because you have to understand that it's a love beyond and outside of time, that it's who you really are. And a very important thing for me to convey is, because the concept of guru is misunderstood often in the West, and it's thought of just like, it's thought of as a groovy teacher, or people call everybody their guru, any teacher they had, or guru this or guru that. And those are teachers, but the true essence of a guru, it's not such as paying homage for no reason. A guru is a spiritual vehicle to bring you to enlightenment. It's a pure being. It's nobody at all. It's a being who has finished their karma, their cycle on the wheel of birth and death, that has become totally liberated from existence and has decided to stay in this universe to help other people like us to get free. to help other people relieve their suffering. So any homage you pay to the guru is like, it's no different from paying homage to Christ. Christ is also the guru. It's no different than paying homage to Buddha. It's you're using the devotion to them to free you. It's not devotion to them because they want this guy to praise me, because they're way beyond anything like that. And you don't want to get caught in the form of them in that sense. But it's easiest to explain or identify with, to say, oh, a picture of Maharaji and that kind of thing. But it's about getting into your heart. And practices you can do with that can be so simple. Like you can sit and breathe into your heart and just say, I am loving awareness. And Ram Dass has meditation on YouTube. Ram Dass, I am loving awareness meditation. Or you can sit with a picture of Maharaji, or a picture of Jesus, or a thing of the cross, or a statue of the Buddha. And you just sit with them and say you look at the cross of Christ. And you just sit there and you think of all his beautiful qualities, and how he used to remind people about God, and how he always talked about the truth, and how he healed people, and how he came in this world to be of service, and how they nailed him up on the cross for practicing love. And so those kind of practices, that's devotional yoga. That's how you get into your heart. So I would say for me, the essence of that trip was being with the people was fantastic. The love I felt through connecting with others, but just the blessing of the environment, of just showing up, like of bowing down at the 1,000-year-old Shiva temple, that people have been coming to this little temple that's the size of a room for the last 500 to 1,000 years, and you could feel the power of that. And so I just wanted to convey that little bit, try to convey the conveying of what cannot be conveyed. And I am going to go back next year, so please feel free to comment or reach out to me if that's a journey you'd be interested in taking, which would also involve going to more temples in the area. And we also did a few things like go on out on the water in some beautiful lakes in the mountains, which was awesome. I didn't get to go to Taj Mahal, but I'm going to next time. Even for people, well, if anyone went on such a trip, spiritual in nature, it will awaken most certainly something in you. And also from cultural perspective, it's very amazing to just be a part of a whole different culture that's a completely different world. The way people move around, the way the food is, the way they talk, just what it's like, the massive amounts of people everywhere. The very low, a lot of people live much below the poverty lines of, say in the West, in the United States, they live much below the poverty lines, but it's interesting because I've heard, and the guide told me, and you can feel it, that people aren't as stressed and they're happy. So it's interesting because you can have a lot more and be very stressed and unhappy, and you can have a lot less. And it's not just, when I try and tell people this, they say, oh, well, yeah, they're probably used to it, which has a relevancy, but also it's all about their mind and spirit. It's about where you're at, where your perceptual vantage point of life is. If you're living full of love and devotion to God, then you could be and maybe have less than somebody else and be happy. Where if you're living closed and constricted, you could be in a very big house and have lots of things and be unhappy, which just shows us that the truth of our nature comes from within always. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I will be back soon.